I probably have more excitement than I do have concerns or fear. But I think not just for aviation insurance, or the aviation market, it's for the insurance market in general.
Welcome to the Aviation Insurance Podcast, the podcast that helps aircraft owners and aviation businesses learn and understand the complex world of aviation insurance and risk management. From the basic principles of aviation insurance to risk management techniques and updates on the aviation insurance market, the Aviation Insurance Podcast is your guide to traverse the world of aviation insurance. Now, here's your host, Tim Bonnell.
Well, welcome to the Aviation Insurance Podcast, and excited today to bring a long-term friend and a business colleague into the discussion as we are in unique times these days. As we record this, we're in perhaps one of the most innovative times in our industry for aviation, for sure. We haven't seen innovation at the level we've seen, the past year or two, and that's coming down the pike in quite some time. And so as things change, aviation insurance has to adapt. Underwriting changes, and some of it's good, some of it's bad, and it's a continual process to learn, evolve, and grow. And so when I think of somebody who's a well-studied and versed underwriter who sticks on top of the technology in aviation and insurance, as someone who's both a pilot and an experienced aviation insurance underwriter, Jim Anderson from Starr Aviation comes to mind. So today I'm pleased to welcome to the show, Jim Anderson. Jim, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, glad to be here, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Jim, I think I first met you when I was still in high school, and you were back at the ComAv, and then obviously we've been working together for many years. But for the rest of our audience who don't know you, would you just give kind of just a brief introduction to your journey to get to become the Senior Vice President at Starr Aviation?
Sure. In a lot of ways, Tim, I came into this business through my dad, just like you did. Dad was not an insurance guy, though. He was a pilot, FBO operator. He worked for Cessna, Rockwell, and a lot of different aspects of aviation along the way. He ran a charter company, and then, of course, being alongside him for most of that journey, aviation was in my blood, my DNA. Third generation of aviators in the Anderson family. Grandpa had a flying service out of Sky Harbor before it was called Sky Harbor. Anyway, went off to college, got some flight certificates and ratings and that sort of thing. Kind of hit a brick wall with the economy. I had my CFI and looking for a job. And lo and behold, I answered an ad in the paper that said aviation underwriter. It's like, well, heck, I could probably do that until I find a good flying job. Well, 30 plus years later, I'm still looking for that good flying job. So if anybody knows anything, you can hire anybody. Great. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Started with ComAv, AIG, and now Starr. And it's essentially, I've had the same job with three different companies. ComAv was acquired by AIG and Starr split off. And so when the split happened, I kind of went with Starr as opposed to staying with AIG. And yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it, how I got here.
And you're one of the more active aviators. I know our industry is full of pilots and people who fly, but you're very active today and operate your own aircraft and volunteer and serve in a number of organizations that both from operational and safety perspectives. And so that positions you uniquely, even among a group of aviators doing an insurance, and many of whom started out to be a pilot and ended up in this industry and stayed. So appreciate the unique perspective that gives you. And certainly as a pilot, I appreciate your contributions, not only to our industry, but to flying safety in general. So it's appreciative. So, you've been doing it for a long time. At the end of the day, as you just alluded, what are you most excited about in aviation insurance today?
If you look down the road here, there's so many new ideas, new concepts in the industry, not necessarily in aviation insurance, but if you look at one of the new acronyms we have out there that's come about in the last couple of years, MOSAIC, the modernization of airworthiness certificates. And so that brings up a whole new era of potential quick path to certification. I shouldn't say certification, but getting product to market. We have a challenge with fuels, but I think that the industry is going to rise. There's a lot of naysayers out there right now, but I think the industry will rise to the occasion and come up with a solution. UAM, UAV, again, new acronyms. UAVs, yeah, they've been here for a while, the smaller Part 107 vehicles, but urban air mobility and, moving people from point A to point B, like a Waymo. I saw my first Waymo the other day here in town, a pilot or a driverless car, right? And then you stop and think about that. It's like, wow, is that the future for aviation? And the answer is probably. We're going to have, airplanes out there without pilots hauling people or packages and that sort of thing, probably in the near future. And how are the insurance companies, is the reinsurers, the market going to respond to these new risks and these new exposures? It's exciting and scary at kind of the same time. I don't know about you, but, I'm pretty happy to, get on board an airliner and look up front and see two high-time, well-experienced pilots up there. And that I know they've been standardized and everything else. And, probably, the other thing that's a more recent example of why humans are still needed in the flight deck is you take a look at Flight 1549, Miracle on the Hudson, right? Sullenberger and Skiles responded to an emergency split second. Yeah, they made some tough decisions, but how do you create an algorithm where a machine's going to be able to respond to that kind of a crisis and, have the correct inputs? And don't know, but that's going to be the challenge for aviation insurance is we have a lot of new technologies come to market, and how are we going to adapt and create products that'll transfer risk and allow this industry to move forward?
Yeah. And you alluded to, that's one challenge, but what then would be your biggest concern, if not that, about, the aviation insurance today and maybe in the near future?
Yeah. So the technologies actually excite me, not, I probably have more excitement than I do have concerns or fear. But I think not just for aviation insurance, or the aviation market, it's for the insurance market in general. You take a look at some of the awards out there and what we call social inflation. It's not going away anytime soon. The industry can adapt, but who gets to flip the bills, right? I mean, the insurance companies are just a matter of cost throughputs, right? Any business, if you sell a loaf of bread for $1.25 and it costs you $2 to make it, well, you're not going to be in business very long. And it's the same thing with the insurance companies is we react to our cost inputs, and the awards that are being administered out there in the court system or through the court system, and also the cost of defense is rather alarming. And again, the insurance companies we're just in a position where our costs are passed on to the consumer. So with that being said, how much more cost is the consumer going to be willing to absorb? And what's that price inelasticity? What's the margin there for the consumer where it's like, hey, I don't want insurance anymore. For Part 91 operators, for the most part in this country, don't have to have insurance. So there's that. I think that's probably the biggest concern I have going forward is how is the market going to respond or react to that on both the consumer side and the company side.
Yeah, and I know there's been a long-term desire for tort reform and to limit some of the egregious awards that are coming, and that's a whole other topic that many people spend a lot of time on, but certainly that it's not changed and it's continued to get worse, certainly impacted the industry for sure. So getting into that technology piece, whichever on the aviation, side, aviation insurance, what are some of those newer technologies that you think are most impacting underwriting in the aviation sector of the insurance market?
Yeah, you and I did a presentation, I think it was a couple of years ago, for a continuing ed about the journey of technology where, when I got into business, I hate to say this, but there was a telex machine in our office. And a lot of people are like, what's a telex machine? Well, it's basically a fax machine back in the day that used the phone line that can transmit like 200 to 300 characters. You can send a quick note to, say, London, And then you would get your message back the next day saying, yeah, we agree to this or disagree or, whatever. And then there came the fax machine and internet emails and that sort of thing. But, some of the more newer technologies, there's a lot of talk about AI right now. What's AI going to do? How is that going to impact not just the insurance industry, but industry in general? And how can we use that within the aviation insurance market on the brokerage side, on the company side, also from the insured side? Can AI help, with some of the data collection burdens and form filling and all these things? A lot of people have ideas about what AI is, but until you get into the weeds and start experiencing it, I think a lot of people just have this expectation that AI is going to solve all these problems. Well, it has potential to, but at the same time, a lot of people got into the internet business, developed websites and everything that they thought were going to be the end all be all. Didn't work out, so you got to be sure to go down the right path and do your homework, do some research, and take it one step at a time.
At Aris Insurance Solutions, our customers tell us that they work with us because we are responsive, we get back to them quickly, we're reliable to get the job done and follow through with what they've asked us to do. We communicate effectively so they always know what we're doing, we anticipate their needs so that they don't have to think of everything they need in their aviation insurance program. And this and many more reasons are why people work with Aris Insurance Solutions. To learn how you can contact and work with Aris Insurance Solutions, click in the link below for all that information. Yeah, there's a lot to it. And ultimately today, it still takes, human idea and innovation and input to gain the best products out of AI. And whether that's, obviously having the data, and that's something in our industry that's is currently a challenge. I know many of our viewers aren't, they may be just in general aviation, but we don't have the same, loss data some of the other lines of insurance, has access to and things due to the proprietary nature of our industry as it stands today, which maybe is something that could change in the future under the right circumstances. But at the end of the day, it takes the data for these, the algorithms, the predictive nature of AI to have an impact on the safety at least. And then obviously from a similar perspective, the actuarial and, calculations and underwriting, but it takes that human experience and knowledge and input to feed it to get it to that point. And so in my experience and what I've been learning, Jim, it's the people who invest in leveraging the technology well, they'll continue to be, succeeding and very much a part of it. AI is not there to replace them if they know how to use it. It's there to enhance what they do. And right now there's just, I think to your point though, we don't have the data sets and to your point, at this point in time. And I think it's something that, it will definitely take some industry collaboration to get safety and loss information that could benefit everyone, insurers, aviation operations with safety information. But at the end of the day, people are going to have to get to know how to use it to make a benefit. Some people will and some people won't. That's just the way it is in anything. And ideally, it will come to, benefit those who use it and others who don't can do something else. But I definitely, time will tell, but our part of the industry is not quite there to make the best use of it, but it certainly can start, learning how to do so, I would think. So what other technologies, moving beyond AI, could or should be incorporated, into whether that's from aviation, like the flight data recorders or all this, telematics that are coming in, or whether it's something on the insurance or underwriting side or both, what technology should be incorporated to help make our industry better? But it's just going to take some time. And obviously AI is probably one of them. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that the technology is going to be driven by the market. Meaning, what does the consumer want? At the end of the day, that's what you and I both have to think about. How can we deliver products that the consumer is going to find valuable, that they're going to want to purchase and engage with? As far as telematics, there's, an awful lot of folks out there that, telematics sounds really great, but boy, Big Brother, do I really want, this personal information going out to my market, to my broker, out to the world per se. And, a lot of it's already out there, right? But, people, especially as we continue to have data breaches, and, it seems like I get an email every day saying, oh yeah, we've had a data breach, we've had this, we've had that. And that makes me want to take my data and protect it, right? I don't want to give it out to anybody. And I certainly don't want to give it out to anybody that's not going to, have a value added benefit for me. So I think that, especially when it comes to aviation, it's a very personal buying experience. It's a different product, say from your car. Your car, it's a compulsory requirement. You have to have it. Aviation insurance is, you don't have to have it, but you want it. And so you want to work with people that understand your risk, understand your aircraft. There's a lot of different makes and models out there. And, it's like I said, it's a very personal buying experience. I don't think there's anything else in the insurance industry, when it comes to personal lines, that mimics what aviation should, maybe classic cars and that sort of thing. But, aviation is it's just different. You got pilots that want to fly the airplane. You got hull values to consider, aircraft modifications, protection. And then, of course, you get into the whole risk management, risk transfer, protection of personal assets and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's, I think that we're going to have to be keenly aware. I'd love to develop and spend a bunch of the company's money, develop a lot of technology I think is great. Well, at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, what does the customer want? And, you are my customer along with your insureds that you bring to the market. So it's really, I've got to satisfy two customers along the way.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of people got to be willing to do business with you. And, I think a lot of this, as I'm sure you would agree, is just going to take time. There are, aircraft owners and operators and organizations that are experimenting with the use of telematics. They want to, in the same way that a pilot in a turbine aircraft does simulator training, they hone in on how well they're executing approaches, operating the aircraft, and so on and so forth. And there are people of the mindset that, hey, I want to be the best, the sharpest pilot I can be, and if these tools can help me do it, great, I want that. And then, obviously I'd love for that to help my insurance premium. But to your point, as, claims are expensive to handle and all the liability awards continue to rise, all the inflationary costs, premiums can only come so low. However, in a coordination of the event, the more and more people who have that safety and training mindset, who want to say, I want to be better by using these things, that's obviously, ideal in the long run for everybody. But, just as with any technological change, it takes time. You have, and this isn't scientific, you have the early adapters, you have people kind of that are like the idea, they just want to see somebody else go first. And then you got kind of the crowd start to follow. And then you always have those who are reluctant or the last to get on board. And I think I would imagine that's going to be the same with any of these aspects, whether it's telematics and flight data recording information, whether that's AI and the underwriting process. It's I'm sure it will be a process of people who are just along, those same mindsets, the early adopters and those who are interested, and there will always be people who don't want to do it. I would have guessed, though, Jim, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you're insuring an aircraft, with a pilot, and by now the majority of pilots are for safety, for getting better, safe operations. I would think as an underwriter, which I am not, so I guess I can ask this fairly. I would think that would start to self-select good risks from the bad risks. People not willing to, assuming that, yes, you're providing a product people want to buy. If the majority of people are saying, yes, I want to be a better pilot, I want to get on board with these telematics, then I think for many insurance carriers, they're going to start looking at that carefully and saying, look, if these guys are willing to do this, the majority of people are, that's going to kind of self-select the type of clients we want to write. Just looking with a crystal ball, would that kind of be the case you could foresee?
Right. The uptake on, when we talk about, say, the turbine market, corporate jets, owner-flown jets, even heavy turboprops, those are really not the people or the segment that we're concerned about with regard, they got to train every year, and even mandatory for anything that has jet type rating, you got to do a pilot proficiency check at a minimum in the aircraft. And so, those people are training. And so they're kind of engaged in that mindset. When you talk about the other side, piston airplanes, less than 12,500 pounds, anything from a Cessna 150 to a King Air, Conquest, that sort of thing. One of the fights that we have is training. People still are not really embracing training. We ask for the training. It seems like that's kind of low on the priority list. I'm sure you've had the conversations with folks as well that, hey, I've been able to get to it. And, we've heard all the reasons why you can't do it. And that's okay. I mean, life gets in the way. We understand that. But at the same time, I hear from the maintenance side where people just aren't flying as much. There's airplanes that come in for annuals that have had 10, 20 hours on the airframe since the last annual as logged on the Hobbs or the TAC. And so if you're not flying frequently, you certainly have a perishable skill. And that even demands more recurrent training, in my mind. Further, the FAA is really, in my mind, hopefully nobody from the FAA is watching or going to review this podcast, but, we've had this requirement, a flight review every 24 months. And people are flying, less than they ever have in that, less than 12,500 pound area. Yet the training requirements haven't changed. They've tried to encourage it with wings, but the wings uptake is pretty low. It's growing, but it's not growing by leaps and bounds. So until there's a fundamental change in the regulatory environment, and there's a financial incentive in the market, like, wow, I can save a ton of money by doing just a little bit. I just don't see that it's going to, change overnight. I hope it does. I really do, because I think it would be, if you take a look at the journey the airlines had, back in the, 60s, 70s, man, the airline accident rate was pretty bad. There was fatal accidents every year. And if you take a look at general aviation, we don't have the regulatory environment. We don't have the duty of care either, but still we should. And until we get to that zero fatal like the airlines have, that's, we just don't have a fundamental change in what's going on. So I hope that the industry embraces it. I would love to live to see the day where we had a year in general aviation, no fatals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. It'll take time. When it's not, airlines are mandated, it's part of their job. There is all those things, but hopefully more of the early adapters will get on board and the people will closely follow, but definitely will take some time. But it's exciting that, there are safer operations available, and then, technologies we're still not even aware of today that may come down the pike that'll help contribute to that. I guess maybe that's one last question. We maybe have already addressed it since we've talked about a number of technologies already, but, looking into the, far down the horizon, way into the future, are there any other potential technologies that excite you that you either heard of or can envision in the future, but they're just not here today as it relates to, the aviation industry or underwriting, aviation risks?
Yeah, I think one of the transformative technologies that's here today, how about building an airplane with a parachute on board, right? And if you go to the Cirrus website or COBA, one of the two, I think they make that information available to you, that there's been over 200, lives saved, people that have come down under canopy in a Cirrus aircraft, do the parachute. And chances are that may have been gone the other way, hurt, or worst case, lost your life. So there's that's been introduced. The Autoland feature that Garmin came out with, that we're seeing that in more and more airframes. I think the King Air series now has the ability to integrate that. The what do they call it? The Piper Fury has that option. The Cirrus Jet has that option. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, I don't think anybody's activated that in an actual emergency yet. It's only been a demonstration. But, it does happen from time to time where, the pilot becomes incapacitated for whatever reason, and for the ability for a passenger to reach up and push a button and have the airplane set itself down on a runway, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So, there's some technologies that are here. Looking down the road, we've integrated flight management systems, autopilot technologies that are better than, gosh, you can tell. Sometimes you can tell when the pilot's flying the airplane, and sometimes when the autopilot's flying the airplane, right? Does a pretty good job. And so anything to, help reduce the workload, let the pilot become more of a risk manager, if you would, to identify the threats, mitigate them, and manage the flight properly, are all things that are gonna help. And maybe that'll start to trickle down more to the lighter aircraft. And I think it will. You take a look at some of these light sport aircraft that are out there, and now the future with ASTM. I saw a little light sport called a Monterre that's being imported from Brazil with the Garmin G3X. And it's got an integrated autopilot, the whole bit. It's got more features than my Cirrus does, right? And it's amazing. And the cost is much less because it doesn't have to go through the Part 23, Part 25 certification standards. Just needs to meet the TSO, ASTM, boom, off you go. So hopefully that'll be a gateway for some of these technologies on the flight deck to make its way and improve the safety of general aviation and the utility too.
Well, yeah, and ultimately, any of these technologies, anything that leads to improved safety makes underwriting easier, and so it's a mutually beneficial thing. And again, there's just things that we don't know of today that we'll be excited about in the future. But it's exciting. I think as an industry, we have to continue to learn and prepare ourselves while still, assessing risks and how to address them. And in aviation insurance, multiple players have to be on board because it's always from day one been about spreading risk because of the large potential catastrophic nature of aviation. And so as insurers and insurance companies, it's always been about how to underwrite it and spread risks so that at the end of the day, that company makes a profit. And so it's great to embrace these things and see where it leads without getting too far out in front of yourselves from an insurance perspective, from a carrier's perspective, I should say. So, Jim, do you have any closing thoughts on just underwriting technology, the new technologies in aviation or aircraft that we didn't really hit on that you want to share?
Just a closing thought, Tim. That when it comes to aviation insurance, we've kind of been laggers in the industry. Technology is slow to be embraced. It's hard for companies to make that change. But every once in a while, we see big leaps forward, like when the industry started doing more trading on the internet via electronic platforms and that sort of thing. Of course, the industry was kind of going through the same thing where we had electronic flight bags integrated, electronic charting, GPS navigation came forward and is, gosh, if you fly an airplane now that doesn't have a GPS navigator, it's like, what kind of airplane are you flying, But if you take a look back, what has the insurance industry, aviation insurance industry really done in the last 30 years? Well, we kind of hit on all that. Internet use, electronic trading platforms, electronic delivery of documents, streamlined communications, more instantaneous response, and that sort of thing. To be perfectly honest with you, I kind of see a lag, and you may not agree with this, but I'll say it anyway, is on the brokerage side where the brokerage, if you look at some of the bigger players, the alphabet houses, if you would, they don't really have a whole lot of electronic gateways for their clients and that sort of thing. And these are the people with, large amounts of investment or potential investment capital. And so, yeah, it seems like the brokerage side, it's been a slower uptake. On the company side, it's that's where the market has looked for the investment to happen and the change to happen. So we'll continue to press forward. We'll continue to invest and look for ways to deliver our products in a more timely, more efficient manner, stay more competitive, and all that sort of thing, regardless of technology. That's what everybody should be in.
No, you've always had a great perspective on that and followed through, and I agree. I think that representing the brokerage side, more can be done, but I think a lot is exciting, a lot's going on. We'll obviously continue to have these conversations and anything that we can do to improve safety, save lives, and then obviously deliver a good product to the aviation insurance buyers is always a win. And so, Jim, really appreciate you and taking your time to share with us today about your kind of that unique perspective you have. And I know you and I have had a lot of these discussions, and I know that hopefully we'll continue to do those. And so thank you again for not only what you do for our industry, but obviously just taking your time to be with us today and to be a great a guest with us.
Great to be here, Tim. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's all for this episode. Join us again next time as we continue navigating the waypoints in aviation insurance. Till then, enjoy clear skies and unlimited visibility.
Thanks for listening to the Aviation Insurance Podcast. If you found this episode of value, please share it with someone who would benefit from this information. Don't forget to subscribe in your podcast player so you don't miss any new episodes, and to help our show have more impact. This episode is brought to you by Aris Insurance Solutions, your flight plan for navigating the turbulence of aviation insurance. For more information, visit arisinsurance.com. That is www.aerisinsurance.com. Disclaimer. These episodes are for educational purposes only, and due to the changing regulatory and legal nature of the business, some information may change over time. Having a well-educated and experienced aviation insurance broker on your team is an absolute requirement to success in business and for managing your aircraft and aviation business risks.